Hello, everyone. My name is Chris. I am your friendly neighborhood Baba Duchess, movie lover, horror blogger, always a drive in mutant, and this is my horror channel. And today I am talking about Hunting Matthew Nichols, which is a movie that falls under the found footage umbrella. Now, hear me out. I know found footage is a very hit or miss genre for a lot of people. It really is love it or hate it. For me, it is one of my favorite subgenres along with folk horror. And I was very excited when this was revealed to be the horror mystery movie at my local theater chain one Monday. I didn't even know much about this movie going into it. I had seen a trailer maybe a week before and thought, oh, that's something I'll eventually get to. Found footage a lot of the time doesn't really go to the big screen. You can find actually a lot of it on Tubi if you are a big fan of this subgenre. You do kind of have to wade through a lot to get to the good stuff, but there is a lot of good stuff out there. Last year was a good movie for found footage or found footage type movies in the theater. We had a movie called Strange Harvest that came out that I did do a review on, which that one, even if you're not into found footage, I recommend it because it takes more of a documentary style. So in some ways you kind of forget that this is a fictional story. Like you really feel like you're in the middle of this investigation about a serial killer. I don't think that one really got the recognition it deserved. And again, I understand a lot of people hear found footage and kind of make up their mind right then, which I totally get. It's not for everyone. But that one, I think, even if you're not a fan, check it out. And there was also Shelby Oaks, which is another similar one where it is more of the documentary style, then it also has some objective camera, so kind of a mix there instead of just the kind of handheld running around with a camera that turns a lot of people off from the subgenre. And that's why with a lot of these movies, unless it is purely someone running around with the camera, I usually call them found footage style because there are so many types under this umbrella that they aren't technically found footage, but they are very similar in structure. Like you have the screen life movies like Searching and Missing, where you're just seeing the story through people's computer screens, people's phone screens, and it builds the tension in the story that way. And now this one kind of runs with all the different styles that fall under the found footage umbrella. It does start off as a documentary style movie. The main part of this movie is a woman named Tara who is investigating the disappearance of her brother 20 years ago. It happened on Halloween night in 2001, where he and a friend of his who were very into making their own movies, very inspired by the Blair Witch Project, which at the time they went missing had just come out within the past couple of years. And no one in the town really knew what happened to them. They just were there one night and they caught them on camera a couple times walking by certain areas. But other than that, they just had a couple theories they were working with. But the one that was the most logical was they had gone to shoot one of these movies in this heavily wooded area that is very treacherous. You don't want to go in there without someone who knows what they're doing in this area on Vancouver Island. The movie starts off very simply with Tara introducing herself and talking about why she is making this documentary and what she hopes to gain from it, which is obviously getting some more information about her brother and hopefully really finding out what happened to him. This movie also stars Markian Tarasiuk as the director of the documentary, and he is also the director of the overall film. And along with them is their camera operator, Ryan. In the beginning, we see a lot of interviews like you would in a real life documentary. We talk to Tara's mother about what happened that night. And we also hear about Tara's brother Matthew's friend Jordan, who went missing with him, and how the town kind of turned on Jordan's family when they found out his family was not being cooperative with investigators. However, the reason for that is that this is an indigenous family who understandably would be uncomfortable with the police searching their home. especially in a case like this where everybody wants it solved. It's a small town, and as these things happen, people want somebody to blame. There are interviews with investigators talking about what they found at the scene, which in the case of Matthew and Jordan was nothing except for a video camera found at this remote cabin in these woods. And as Tara goes further and further into this investigation, she feels that the investigators held something back from her. And this is where we turn from the actual documentary style of the movie into the more found footage style, where we are following the director and the cameraman and Tara as they are looking for other people to interview, coming up with their own theories. So we are following along through that cameraman's camera. And because of the style that this is done, it isn't that running with the camera style that, can give people motion sickness. It still feels like it could be part of the documentary. We learn that these teenagers were investigating a local legend, a very Blair Witch type legend. Whether they actually thought that it actually came from something that happened was kind of undetermined. Really just kind of seemed like they were, treating it as a joke and just a way to make their own Blair Witch style movie. And this is one of the rare movies that has the distinction of characters actually finding the found footage. Usually it's already been found after the fact and you're just seeing it as an observer as it's presented to you in most movies. But in this movie, we see them uncovering some previously unreleased footage. And in this, Tara sees her brother and his friend. A lot of it is just goofing around with the camera, but they also had found this book that had a lot of strange writings in it, a strange alphabet that they were trying to translate. And as anyone can tell you, especially if you're an Evil Dead fan, do not read from the book.
No! You must not read from the book!
Do not read the Latin.
So this movie establishes what we're looking for, which is any trace of what happened to these boys as they were filming something in the woods. And we're also on this journey with Tara as she is really trying to either put this to rest or really find out the answers, because she is not satisfied with what the local police had come up with. And on that note, I will start with what really worked for me in this movie. And there is a particular scene where Tara is speaking with one of the former investigators. And this was just a very well acted, very intimate scene. And it felt very real, where you understand that Tara is extremely frustrated, but you also see that she is taking it out on this investigator. But on that same token, you see that maybe this investigator wasn't as truthful about what she found as she should have been. And I liked seeing all those different aspects of the conversation kind of run into each other. I also like how the lore that the two boys were searching for was presented in the documentary. Because this is done where you're obviously watching part of the finished project of the documentary that Tara and her team are making. And they use this animation style that works well with telling the story about this crazed woodsman who is also some sort of preacher and does away with his congregation. So I liked that we really got to learn about what was so fascinating that these young men would want to go in the woods to make a movie about it. But I also liked the style in which it was presented. It was some really neat animation. And in using the bits of the finished documentary, this is how you do get a little bit of background, because it's through Tara's mother when they interview her that we learn about Jordan's family kind of being the target of the town's frustration and anger at the situation. And not by saying a lot, we see the relationship between Tara and her mother. So I thought that beginning part of the film really worked well in just setting everything up, but not being overly explanatory. Everything just unfolded naturally. And because we are seeing some of Tara and the team's finished documentary footage, we get some nice cinematography in the beginning, some really great shots of the Rockies in Vancouver. Not something you get a lot of in a typical found footage or found footage type movie. And the references in this movie were fantastic, especially if you're a found footage nerd like I am. You have your obvious nods to Blair Witch Project, right down to one of the scenes. They actually copy that final scene in Blair Witch Project with the camera tipping over. You have nods to Paranormal Activity, and even though it's not found footage, you had a lot of nods to Evil Dead. You've got a cabin in the woods, you've got this book with a mysterious language, lots of fun references and Easter eggs. And now we'll get to what did not work for me. And I think even though a lot of these different styles of movies under the found footage umbrella worked well, there were times when I see you, Markian, you were cheating. You thought by doing found footage and also having the objective camera filming the found footage was going to be a way for you to use a soundtrack. Now, anyone who likes found footage will tell you as soon as you start hearing a score, a soundtrack that is not coming from the radio, it's not coming from a television that the characters are watching or listening to, that will take you right out of it because you wouldn't be hearing that with just that footage. Now, the director here, I think, kind of tried to split the difference by he would be filming a typical found footage scene, and this also goes into what didn't quite work for me is I've never had a problem with motion sickness watching like the Blair Witch Project, and I know some people have. In this one, because of the way the camera was used, I actually had a hard time watching it. Now, that part of the movie is not a big part of it. It's maybe 10 minutes towards the end, and the camera's not like that the whole time. But I did have issues where some of that was they were way too unwieldy with that camera. There has to be a little bit of stability. But like I said, you would have, say, a Mark Ian's character directing, okay, and you're seeing his footage through his camera, but then all of a sudden you would be watching it from like the objective camera, watching him filming Tara or whatever else was going on, and then there would be music. I liked the music, and technically it's not cheating because, yes, it's objective camera, but I think that was a little sneaky, and I did not like that. It was too much like trying to have your cake and eat it too, where I want music in the background, but I know I can't do it if I'm the one holding the camera, so I will film this camera filming me. I don't know. It was a whole thing. I'm just being picky, I know, but any of my fellow found footage fans know exactly what I am talking about. You can have multiple styles in your movie, just use them one at a time because that's when it was most effective. Because once I got past that part of the objective camera showing the found footage director directing the found footage, I really liked where the true found footage aspect ended up. It was very creepy. I thought some of the images were very original. I don't often get creeped out at the movie theater, but this one did that because it can be very hard to be truly original with a found footage movie, especially when we've had some really iconic ones come out. They're all kind of, working from the same color palette. Now, that's not an excuse to make something completely unoriginal, but it can be limiting. But overall, I did enjoy this one. I give it 3 top hats. I liked that it played around with the genre, and I found the performances to be very good. Whether or not you will like this really does depend on how you feel about the, found footage, screen life, documentary style movies. But if you are worried about something that's going to be too much of just a camera waving around and, people just running around screaming each other's names, this one does not have a lot of that. It is more documentary style than like your Blair Witch running around in the woods type movie. So if you're on the fence about found footage in general, I would say give it a try. And again, even if you're not a found footage fan at all, I do recommend checking out the movie Strange Harvest. I will try and remember to put the link up at the end of this video. That one just played out like a documentary. You could even forget that it is kind of in this family of movies. So that is all I have on that one. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment on this video if you liked it. I really appreciate it. And as always, like what you like, don't be a dick, and empathy is a superpower.